Okay. Um, so my legitimating, my evaluating Chris Hedges' reference to the importance of monotheism for individualism and modern individualism and human rights. My going beyond his basic evaluation to justify both shamanism, to expand the reference to shamanism, the value of shamanism, as we see in healing in modern times, and the contribution to sustainability thinking, and human rights, if we get down to it. Actually, I was just talking today about Joanne Paul, who was awarded, I think it's the Goldman Environmental Prize. In what year? Well, the 1980s or 1990s, from, I think, a Lakota Native American tribe in the United States. And, she is one of many amazing award winners, activists by the Goldman Environmental Prize. But she is virtually, certainly unique in that I've found so far, as a Native American who was inspired by prophetic dreams to become an activist, a woman, a mother with 8 kids. That gets pretty close to the shamanistic kind of experience. And I guess I could also cite Louis Malmadrona, who certainly specifically refers to patients of his who were benefited by actual native shamans with healings, and he provides some version of medical report of that otherwise medically impossible healing. So, okay, so then for the polytheism then, in which civilizations like Mesopotamia, Egypt, and then ancient Greece, they had their polytheistic society. And then so we see that is there value to that? As an interfaith Christian, interested in progressive Christianity and modernizing the understanding of Jesus Christ with the doctrine of multidisciplinary theology, of Jesus' legacy and integrity, right? I can now articulate my identity in that way. I can recognize the value of polytheism as it represents important, contributing, constructive forms of worship of some angle and aspect of the one Creator God. And so then Socrates, then, in the account of Plato, is described as being influenced by his friend Chaerephon, who visited, according to Plato, the Delphi oracle, right? The oracle at Delphi, a woman, I understand, who appears to have been part of a tradition in which inhaling ethylene fumes or some kind of volcanic fumes, presumed to be or assumed to be, thought to be ethylene, a substance, but certainly having then some kinds of visionary experiences with informational content, and in this case then content and lasting significance, right? In the sense that Chaerephon asked, who is the wisest man in Athens? And received the response that it was Socrates. And then his interaction with Socrates inspired Socrates to engage in a search that in which he developed his method of Socratic questioning, and came up with the conclusion after questioning the men of Athens, or so many people of Athens, that he was the wisest. Socrates was the wisest because I've heard this incorrectly phrased, what seems to be incorrectly phrased, as he knew that he knows nothing. Right? That appears to be a distortion of what he said. He appears to have really said something to the effect that he knew when he didn't know something, he knew that he didn't know it. He was able to admit that he didn't know it. He was able to recognize and acknowledge that he didn't know it. So the Socratic method, right? Socrates, who had some kind of spiritual belief about a daemon, some kind of angle. Aristoteles, 2 generations down, right, the student of Plato himself, then had his first cause intellectual God, and so somehow becoming individuated from polytheism, distinct from polytheism, having individual beliefs that distinguished him from a polytheist. But nevertheless, then we have that kind of event that links the oracle at Delphi with Socrates and his sequence. So then I guess I'm acknowledging more the value of theism in general, given the perspective of multidisciplinary philosophy and theology. So, I guess it goes to the Christian, modernized Christian, negotiated principle of UN human rights, right? That is a fascinating thing about UN human rights, in that it was proposed by F.D. Roosevelt, inspired in relationship with his wife, First Lady Eleanor, but through various, identifiable through various actions he took during his administration. And his social gospel, New Deal, Christian service value, value identity, that underlay his vision, that became his legacy, since he died before the war's end. But his fellow administrative associates and Democrats, like Truman, pursued the vision of the UN and even the negotiation of human rights. That then was negotiated with the entire international community, including the leadership, facilitative leadership of Eleanor Roosevelt, making all fascinating story and detail, an important range of details to clarify then that it's not just a Christian development, but was a negotiated development. We have additional observations as to the treatment of that original negotiation, since the United States in the Cold War already did not sign one of the 2 covenants derived from the original Declaration of Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So the United States didn't sign the Economic, Social, and Cultural Covenant in the Cold War, and at that time it was contrasted with the Soviet Union not signing the Civil and Political Rights Covenant. one of the two that were formed as a result of those concerns, which apparently the United States hasn't signed. I don't know about Russia. And another development interesting to note is that many Islamic nations, some 40 or more I understand, have not signed the UN Universal Declaration of Human Rights, but have instead created their own Cairo Declaration in 1992 or so of Islamic human rights based on Sharia law. So that's an issue there. But understanding those distinctions, then where are we? Chris Hedges then is sort of casting a broad net, but certainly is getting at the need to define religion with respect to identifying its appropriate, necessary, and sufficient phenomena that justify its legitimate knowledge domain, the subjects of comparative religious studies, and so on. So let me see where that stands. Okay.